So with that, I'd like to introduce Andres. He's a long-time Jewish communal leader with a history of leading successful organisational transformations. He was the CEO of the Federation CJD in Montreal from 2009 to 2011, and there he helped fundamentally change the Federation's operations and its relationships with the community. When did you start work? When will you be starting work here? In Montreal, he spearheaded a new branding strategy and initiated and developed innovative community programs that are now being used as models across North America. He's worked in areas of welfare, leadership, Jewish renewal, education, community development and outreach. And this is the part I like. He directed a leadership training institute for Jewish lay and professional leaders. We want one. We should have one here. Better still, we should go to Europe and study there. That would be a good thing to do. And he also directed the International Centre for Community Development, which was a partnership with Oxford University to produce applied research and knowledge management for community development practitioners. So there's some really good professional work going on in communities overseas. And just to completely embarrass you and to highlight the limitations of us being native English speakers, Andres is Argentinian and is fluent in Hebrew, English, French, Spanish, Portuguese and Yiddish, and of course he's proficient in Russian and German.
Thank you. Don't worry about the proficiency in so many languages. At this time of the day and with 15 hours of jet lag, I speak Spanish in any language, so. Okay, I'm going to talk to you today about some trends in the Jewish community that affect philanthropy, but we're not going to start with philanthropy, because philanthropy, what's happening in the world of Jewish philanthropy is in fact a consequence of things that are happening in the Jewish community as a whole, right? So we generally make a mistake when we try to address philanthropy separated from the context in which it actually evolves. So I'm going to talk to you about three things: an unemployed philosopher, a game, and a broken clock. Now, who's the biggest Jewish philosopher of all times? Maimonides, Ramban. Now, what was Ramban's main contribution? It was the integration between Judaism and Greek philosophy, right? His work, The Guide of the Perplexed, what he basically did is he tried to integrate between these two supposedly contradictory ways of understanding the world. And he does it wonderfully. I mean, by doing that, he produces the best work of Jewish philosophy of all time. Now, why he would be unemployed today? Why do you think he would be unemployed? Because today, we don't have to integrate. Today, so you can live with separate truths that are in parallel and are contradictory. Today, you don't see a contradictor driving to an Orthodox shul for Shabbat services. We live in an extremely fragmented world in which we hyphenate our identities, but we don't integrate them. Now, that sounds philosophical, but it's not. It has a direct impact in the way we relate with Jewish organizations. Because we also don't have the same loyalty, the same belonging that we used to have in the past, where we were looking for a single narrative, for a single ideology that would integrate all of us and that we would subscribe to that. No, now we build it. We build our identities the same way we watch TV. We change from one channel to the next, to the dismay of our spouses that are next to us and want to focus on one program. So we build our program watching different bits and pieces of different programs. So the same happened with our identity. We build it by picking from different elements of different ideology. And that then has a direct impact on the way we relate with Jewish organizations that are still based in the idea that you're going to have a single driver for your belonging and for your identity. If I'm being too lofty, you stop me and you ask questions, okay? The second issue I want to talk to you about is about a game. A game that the name of it represents a lot of what society is about. And that's what I use to get my kids to eat broccoli. You know, I tell them, if you don't eat broccoli, there's no we. You know, the we, the game?
Oh, yes.
You have it here? Yeah. So, but now the funny thing about the we is how is it spelled? It's W-I-I. In other words, the pronoun that denotes collectivity is spelled with two I's. In other words, the central element of our society today, the main organizing thread of our community is the I, is the individual. And that sounds obvious, but it's not. It's a major change in the way we see society. We are moving more and more from a society of collectives to a society of individuals, right? And that impacts not just the way we operate in the world, it impacts philanthropy very, very strongly. Because philanthropy, especially in the Jewish community, is mainly based on the idea of community, of collective action, etc. Now we are in a world where the individual is the king. We live, as John Ruska, the head of the UJA Federation of New York, tells me, we live in an orgy of individualism. And it is true, to a certain extent it's true. Now, what that also implies is that the individual has an enormous power to do things that he could have never thought, that he could have never dreamt in the past. Now, so the two coins of this, the two sides of this coin, of this rampant individualism, is on the one hand a weakening of the collective, and that affects us all, because all of us who live in organizations that are based on the collective idea suffer from this. On the other hand, the strengthening of the individual and the empowerment of the individuals to create their own identity and to create their own path, what it does is it generates an enormous creativity and an enormous dynamism that we didn't have in the past. Right? So the question is then, for us in Jewish organizations, is how to minimize I would say the downside of the weakening of the collective, while at the same time harnessing the creativity and the dynamism of the individual. You know, of this. You know, today, think about it. Today, a kid starts a revolution with a cell phone and Facebook and topples a dictatorship. Somebody starts a company in his own garage and it becomes the biggest company in the world. So there is that power. The question is us in the Jewish community, how we capture that power, how we capture that energy, right? And we're going to talk about it in a minute. The third thing that I want to talk to you about is a broken clock. Now, Jewish organizations, Jewish communal organizations, and I'm generalizing, not all of them, but many, were actually created following the organizational model of the Industrial Revolution, which was in turn copied from the model of the Prussian army of Frederick II, who in turn copied it from a clock. He says, my army is going to work like a clock. Every piece will know what it has to do. They're all going to move in synchronization, in harmony. He says, in my army, everybody's going to have a single commander. There's going to be what they call the chain of command. We're going to be organized in units. The units are going to be organized in regiments, in divisions, and in armies. we replicated that. I mean, actually, industrial organizations of the 20th century replicated that model, and we in the Jewish community replicated that model, sort of a top-down pyramidal model. Now, that Prussian clock is broken, because organizations today, successful organizations, are not organized in a top-down model. And that affects also the way in which we see philanthropy. Because philanthropy was also seen through the paradigm of the top-down organization. In other words, when I was at the federation, we would decide, what was the theme of our annual campaign. We would go and we would raise money. The money would come to a central kupat, a central pot, and then we would allocate it based on the needs and the demands that we saw, that we interpreted in a central way from the general population. That doesn't work anymore. Because the model of the organization of today is not the clock, but the brain. In other words, interactive and superseding networks that connect in a very different way, that is definitely not top-down, where leadership is distributed evenly across the network, and where the strength is not in the units, but in the relations between the units. Right? Memory, for example, a lot of people try to study the brain to see where memory is located. Well, it's nowhere. Memory is not a function of the neurons themselves. It's a function of the synapses between neurons. So, the same way creativity in an organization is not a function of this or that unit coming up with an idea, is a function of the relation between the different elements. And as in the brain, the more relations, the more synapses your neurons have, and the more connected with other neurons they are, the better your brain is. Same happens with a Jewish organization. The more connection there is within a single organization and among different organizations, the stronger you're going to be, the more creative you're going to be. By the way, an idea is a network. An idea is a group of neurons firing in different ways and creating new neural pathways. It's not one neuron that will come up with an idea. The idea is that connection. Okay? Now, again, that sounds about neurology, but in fact, it has very specific implications for the way we organize Jewish communities. Do you have, for example, employees, or do you have connectors? Do you have fundraisers, or do you have network weavers? So, and that's a critical distinction. That is not just semantics. Okay, so all that I said is basically deals in a truism that the world has changed, and the Jewish communities cannot continue to operate as if the world hasn't changed. There's accelerated uncertainty, and that makes even more necessary the change in organizational paradigms. Because our organizations, the same way many commercial organizations, are created based on the idea that there is a clear cause-effect relations between things we do and things that happen. And today that doesn't exist anymore. We live in a world of pluricausality. There's total uncertainty. Every crisis is more unexpected than the previous one. If you think about the 5 things that, the 5 most important things that happen in the next 20 years, 9/11, the fall of the Berlin Wall, Argentina not winning the World Cup. Those things were all unexpected. Nobody had predicted. So every major crisis creates a sense of total uncertainty, of radical uncertainty. And our communities are built for certainty. We don't have systems that allow us to capture and to deal effectively with uncertain, unpredictable issues. By the way, that is true not just for us, it's true for every major corporation, non-profit organization, churches, etc. Individuals, as I said before, they're hyper-empowered, they're hyper-connected, and the weight shifts from the collective to the individual. The other thing is that we live in a world where there's no patience. I always say, how am I supposed to teach Talmud in 140 characters of Twitter? Right? It's very hard. Now, there's no patience. How an educational process works when there's no patience? When a kid can go online and just know more than his teacher, it just, So the nature of how processes happen is changing. Now, that also sounds very, very, very philosophical, but it's not. Because if your organization is very process heavy, that will mean that people are not going to have patience for you. Because there's no patience anymore. And then the fact that the weakening of the collective not only affects the Jewish community, it also affects the state. Now, this is basically what I said, that Jewish organizations are built for a different paradigm, for a different time, and the question you need to ask yourself is, if the Jewish organizations wouldn't exist, if you had to create them today without the weight of the legacy, of the inertia of what's coming from the past, how would you create them? What kind of organizational structure would you have? Probably the answer is we would create it exactly the same way. But you have to ask yourself that question. Because we live in a different world than the one for which our organizations were created. You see, we are like this, like the thing at the left, at the right, and organizations of the future are like that. So you have to ask yourself, how do you operate? How does your fundraising operate? It operates in a top-down way, in a highly structured, or are you set up as a network that can capture different interactions and different connections all the time? By the way, again, this is true for companies as well. Companies that are successful today work like that. They are very flat, they're very interconnected. So, but I did this for the federations in the States, so that was the federation, but in fact, it really applies for every major Jewish organization. So, you have to move from being top-down to have emergent energy. In other words, the strategy of the past was at the top, people will define vision, will set the goals, and they will give everybody the task they had to do. Today is the opposite. Vision emerges from the interactions between the people. It's not hierarchical, it has to be organic. The most important thing is that the task of leadership changed dramatically. A leader today is not the same idea of leader that we have, that strong commander of an army, the strong general. Is actually somebody that connects and somebody that facilitates processes that are happening at the grassroots level. A leader today has to be a catalyst. Has to be somebody that looks at what's happening at the ground level and manages to bring it to the next, to make it higher to the next level. The other thing is this. We are used to very proprietary ways of seeing information. And successful organizations in the 21st century have changed that. The success of open source software, for example, means that you move the paradigm from owning to sharing. The success of, I don't know if you have here in Melbourne, Zipcar, that people share their cars. The energy that exists in the free flow of goods, services, and information is what makes companies successful today. So companies that restrict their flow of information, both internally and externally, suffer, get poorer and poorer with time. And Jewish organizations, al achat kama v'chama. I mean, if you have a paradigm of proprietary information, of closed border in which you're not going to share, you're going to own less and less and less, because sharing is the new owning. And again, from organizations to networks. So, how all these trends impact the way people give, and especially younger people. So first of all, because it's all about the individual, the role that loyalty had in giving was replaced by impact. In the past, we would give because this is what Jews do. We give. And we give to the federation, and we give to the community, and we give to the synagogue, because that's the way how we express our loyalty to the Jewish community and our belonging, etc. It's not like that anymore. For millennials, our generation X and Y, the main driver of giving is impact. So if you're phrasing your fundraising pitches in terms of loyalty, guilt, sort of belonging, responsibility, it's not enough. You have to say, what is the impact that I'm going to have through my contribution? Right? And that's in line with what's happening in the society. If somebody can do something and immediately see the impact it has because of the fast pace in which our world operates, so he will expect the same about in terms of his own philanthropy. It's about values. It's not about valuables. Meaning, yes, giving money is important, but it is about engagement. Now, there were two main studies in the US about Jewish giving. One was Next Gen Donors, and the other one was something that it's online, so you should look at it. It's called Committed to Give. The main predictor of giving is engagement. They try to look, so what is the main predictor of giving? Is it wealth, like wealthy people give more? Is it age, like older people give more? No. The main predictor of giving is engagement. So if you want to increase giving, you have to increase engagement. And that was my fight at the federation. Federation would tell me we need to hire more campaigners because we need to go and raise more money. I said, no, we need to hire more Jewish educators. We have to do more cultural activities, more cinema festivals, anything that engages people, because the only thing that is going to ultimately impact our campaign is engagement, right? Now, we also tend to, make a box fit on a square, or the other way around. In other words, we want young people that think and give differently to be giving through the same vehicles that we used 20 or 30 years ago. The general undesignated gift is weakening, and younger people are 20 times more likely to use new vehicles for giving, meaning impact investing, giving circles, network giving, crowdsourcing, stuff like that. Now, not all of that is good news for us, because some of these vehicles are not necessarily good or useful for the Jewish community. But we cannot ignore them. We cannot pretend that the only way of giving today is the traditional annual campaign or the traditional mailing. It doesn't work like that. People use different vehicles for giving, and we at least need to know what they are. Now, another battle that we shouldn't be fighting because it's lost already is that people are not and will not give only Jewishly. Only 4% of donors in the States give only Jewishly. So to go and to make them feel guilty for that, it's not going to work. What it is going to work is to show them that they can obtain the same satisfaction, the same joy, the same rewarding experience from giving Jewishly than from giving to the university or to the museum or whatever it is that they give in their secular life. Many of the folks that are giving big monies to secular causes do not know. I mean, many of them do it for social acceptance. That is phasing out, really. That is not the case anymore. But many do not know that they can do the same, or they can serve the same goals that they want to serve by their gift through a Jewish vehicle. If you take the case of the environment, for example, I mean, a lot of people give a lot of money to secular environmental groups. If they had an outlet to do that Jewishly, they would. It's not that they are against giving Jewishly; they just don't find the proper outlet. Next gen also are not necessarily, and that's the good news, they're not necessarily against traditional causes. I mean, that's you know, it's not as if they're going to give totally differently than their parents gave. They want to keep supporting the same organizations. It's not that they don't. What they do want is that those organizations listen to them and sort of reorganize themselves in a way that can speak their own language. But they're not a priori against. I mean, that's a misconception. So you're young, you sort of totally break with the past. No, they're not against. I mean, they just want that Jewish organizations adapt. So I'm going to be an answer giver for a minute. You know, unsolicited advice here. And then we're going to open it up for questions, and I want this to be more dialogue than a lecture. So, first of all, because the world is uncertain, and you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work, you have to embrace risk. Because in a world when you know for sure that A produces B, okay, so you don't have to, you know, take risks. But in a world where you don't really know what's going to work, like as I said the other day, nobody lived in the 21st century before, so nobody knows if Moshe House will work or if a traditional whatever something else will. You have to try it. There's no other way. The more you try, the more gates you open to Jewish engagement, the more vibrant your community will be, and the more money you're going to raise. Second, you have to be tolerant to failure. We are in the Jewish community very reluctant to fail. We don't want to fail. And organizations that succeed today do it by failing a lot. So the question really is to fail cheap and to fail fast. In other words, try a lot of things, but create a structure that allows you to benefit from that failure. You know, create a system by which your recycle bin is going to be recycled and it's not going to be thrown away. You know, we call it recycle bin, but we don't recycle; we just throw it away. Now, our failures can teach us a lot for the future. Because there's no one future. You know, the strategic planning as we know it, it's dead. What it is now, the trend, is to have an organization that is flexible to adapt to different futures. Because again, we don't know what the future will bring. If you're in a leadership position, you need to learn how to act more as a convener, as a facilitator, and as a broker of relationships between people. Because that's what's going to talk to the younger people. Again, you know, one thing I would tell to my staff at the federations is they used to be schmoozers, you know, going to cocktails and, you know, snoring. Basically, the skill has to be being a connector and how to create vibrant networks of people at different levels. Your best fundraiser is the one that has the most Facebook friends, or whatever is going to be the new one when Facebook, you know, goes out of fashion. But it is about connections. It is about creating, facilitating, and strengthening connections. Then design your organizations to allow serendipity and creativity to flow. If you build Jewish organizations in silos, both internally and externally, they're not going to be creative, and it's going to create a gap between how young people see themselves and how they see their own organization. Young people don't have silos, they're connected, they think and they operate in networks. So if the Jewish organization doesn't do that, it's going to be a schism between the two. Building bridges is critical. What you're doing here between AJF and the Jccv, it's an example, but the more bridges you build, the more connections there will be, the stronger your network will be, and the more people you will engage. The other thing that in the States is now a hot topic is the thing of an inclusive and welcoming community. Because communities are more and more diverse in ideological terms, in socioeconomical terms, even in terms of sexual orientation, in level of practice, anything. So because they're so diverse, inclusivity is not about a big mainstream majority being nice to a few fringe people. It's the way to be. We are going to be more and more mosaics and patchworks of different minorities or different groups that need to be included. The lack of inclusiveness, at least in the States, and I don't know so much about Melbourne, at least in the States, is a major driver of community disengagement. People that don't feel included just drop out. And the other also works. The national average in the US of children of mixed marriages that grow up Jewishly is 34%. In other words, from all the mixed marriages, only 30% grow up Jewishly. Now, communities that have devised a deliberate strategy to be welcoming, inclusive, and accepting of mixed marriages, and doing programs for children of mixed marriages, have doubled that. In Boston, for example, it's 62%. So inclusiveness pays. There are ideological issues, I'm not minimizing them, and every community is different, but I'm saying finding ways within your ideological limits to be inclusive is very important, and it pays. And think in terms of value. In other words, what is the value that your organization gives to society? And tell the donor, not why I want you for, rather, how can I be a tool for you to produce the value you want to produce in the community? Again, this sounds semantics, but it's not. In the past, the donor was a tool of the organization. In today's world, the donors see the organizations as their tool. Now, so you have to say, what's your vision? What's the change you want to produce in the world? What's the problems in the community that you want to take care of? And I can be a vehicle to do that, right? So that's it. Questions, comments, ideas? Yes.
I've recently had two instances where I've had to deal with Jewish care here in Melbourne. The first instance was well, I can't, unless they've got a microphone, I can't raise my voice.
Stand up. Yeah, we've got a microphone. We've got two microphones. Voice like this. Hates it. We don't need a microphone. No, we can hear it. Speak so.
Or maybe if I stand up.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
Hello?
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It works. It's working.
It's working? I've recently had two instances where I've had to deal with Jewish care here in Melbourne. They are an organisation supposedly to look after the Jewish community. The first one was we had a cousin that had been living in a car for 6 months until we found out about it.
Excuse me, questions only, please. I'm so
Well, they're just not doing their job, Nina.
What's the question?
Well, I thought this
I need
was
a
what,
question.
I thought this is what this was supposed to be, that we were supposed to let people know what was going
No,
on.
we're not doing that.
Okay.
I also don't know enough about what's going on in the organizations, so can we? Yes.
We've had a lot of discussions over recent years about engaging younger people, and a lot of those conversations have the solution that's come from leadership has been, well, we should start by going back to primary school and engaging there, and in 30 years we'll have older people who are young people who are engaged, and that sort of loses a generation or two in the middle. I'm just wondering what the experience has been over in the US and elsewhere.
Well, every organization will tell you that their age is a critical age. And the truth is that research is contradictory. I mean, people said, yeah, day schools are the main driver of Jewish identity, and that's true. But then birthright comes along, and it becomes a major driver of Jewish identity, at least in the US. So it becomes sort of a rite of passage for like another bar mitzvah. So every age is critical. And again, one of the main differences between today's world and the past is that there's not either or. You don't need to think in terms of, I will invest in schools instead of investing in young adults. Schools are critical because they create a basic core of Jewish identity, but young adults are critical because they take they deal with the age, with the time in life where people make their vital decisions: who they're going to marry, what kind of children they're going to have, how they're going to educate them, who they're going to date. So every age is different. What I'm trying to say is that you cannot offer a single. There's no silver bullet, frankly. I mean, by the way, the latest research is showing something that we were not taking very seriously, which is that early childhood impacts a lot in Jewish identity.
Exactly.
In early childhood, and there are conversations now about PJ Library here, which is a program designed for young families. Well, research is proving that it also involves the families, and it also involves, it creates basic memories that form identity, etc. So, but the main question is, do not think, and if there's only one message that you take from today, is do not think in terms of either or. Do not think that Jewish community or Jewish philanthropy is a zero-sum game. There's energy to do everything, and frankly, if you know where to find it and how to get it, there's money for everything too. There's not a question. I mean, the Jewish people, is richer, stronger than it ever was in its 4,000 years of history. So, if we could deal with the challenges we deal with that in the past, we can certainly deal with funding early childhood and young adults. The question is how to go about approaching it. Yeah.
We had a question from Andre.
No, he's done it.
Oh, he's done it. I was out of the room.
Who's next?
I think Jonathan, Karen Black, and Josh.
Thank you very much for your fascinating and challenging talk. I was involved about 30 years ago with setting up a little group across the Jewish community in London to meet together at Christmas to celebrate Jewish education and learning, and it's grown into a phenomenon called Limud. And so my question really is, do you think, taken from what you're saying in general terms, that it's important for the community in its different denominations to be seen to be working together, cooperating and respecting each other?
Yeah. So so two things. First of all, Limud is an excellent example because Limud is grassroots, is an emerging thing. Nobody came up and said, we're going to plan this massive, study fest. It just happened. But people were very smart in the chief rabbi, although there was a little bit of controversy with the chief rabbi, but he was smart and sort of let it grow, and just intervene when they needed a little push on certain things. So people that collaborate and network will reward those that collaborate and network, and will punish those that don't. If I know that my donation is going towards building duplication, or by helping an organization defend turf, I'm not going to be inclined to give it. If I know that my donation creates impact and that the organization I'm funding is collaborating with others, I'll be much more inclined to give. So yes, it's critical. One of the main things, when I was in Canada, we did this study on motivation of young Jews and why they were not involved with the federation. And one of the main drivers for the disengagement was too much politicking, too much bickering, too many intrigues, too many turf wars. Just get your act together, and you do good things, but just get your act together and just, don't be such a turn-off organization. They actually called the federation the snake pit. So no, it's sad. I mean, it's funny, but it's sad. So if we give that image to young people, they will be totally turned off. Yes.
So I gave the microphone to John.
sorry.
Everybody wants to ask questions, so please be patient. We'll get to you.
I know that you mentioned that not everything works the same way for everybody, but can you still give some examples of some different funding examples that have worked, kind of go through that, or maybe some examples that didn't work and some lessons you learned from that? Because we're starting off from, or at least I'm starting off from zero that we're a shul. Right now I just know how to do we just do the membership appeal. So kind of just some other
You mean in
examples.
fundraising or
Fundraising.
engagement?
Fundraising.
Okay, so things that work, and again, this is different, and you have to try, you have to tinker with it, because what works in one community may not work in another. But using new vehicles for fundraising works. The idea of the giving circles, and you know what a giving circle is? A giving circle is a group of like-minded people that are brought together by either a demographic or a geographical location, or just a group of friends that they decide to give together. And they run their own process of allocation. The biggest one now in the States is called Natan, and it gathers young Wall Street folks that put $50,000 each, and then they run a process by which they decide what they're going to do with it. Now, for big organizations, it's extremely unsettling, because what if they decide to give to other causes? But the results were great. Because when they get Jewish organizations to present and to show their case, the case is very compelling. The case that we have for giving, it is compelling. We do great things. The problem is that we don't get people through the door to tell them that case. So the giving circle gives you that option to sit down in front of a group of like-minded people. The other thing that works is to engage people in the definition of the issue and in crafting the solutions. In other words, the idea of saying, this is the problem, this is the solution, give us money, doesn't work. I shouldn't say it doesn't work. It works for some people. It just doesn't work for a lot of the younger donors. Whereas if you sit down with them and say, listen, this is the situation, help us define the problem, help us craft the solution, and this is what it takes to fix it. So your chances are much stronger. And the third element is your whole language has to change. In other words, it's not about what are we doing with your money. It's a step beyond that. It's about what is the impact that your donation has. Don't tell me that, I'm giving you X amount of dollars. Tell me that my X dollars do A, B, C, and D. But not in terms of output. Not in terms of they send 10 kids to summer camp. Or you don't have summer camps here. Well, whatever, to Hebrew school. No. What is the ultimate outcome of these 10 kids going to day school? Right? You know, we talk about early childhood, we talk about young adults, birthright. What is the ultimate impact of that? And sometimes it's hard to define that because it's very subjective, right? And it's not something you can measure. But if you put the conversation in those terms, it works. In other words, go back to them and do the appeal from them upwards rather than from you downwards. In other words, what do you care about? What is your vision? How can we be a vehicle for you, donor X or donor Y, to realize your vision? Yeah, that, you know, in a nutshell, of course. As I said, every situation is different. Yes?
You've mentioned birthright a couple of times. Is there any evidence, I've heard there is, that connecting the young people with Israel has a flow-over effect in general to their giving and to their engagement with the community beyond just Israel Matters?
Yes, there is some. It's a little too early. I mean, when people ask me, does birthright work? I tell them, well, ask me in 20 years. But there is some evidence that it does. I mean, they studied, for example, campus attitudes, you know, of kids that went to birthright and kids that didn't, and they're very different. We are starting now to do giving circles like the one I just described for birthright graduates, for birthright alum, and it's great. They have, you know, so it does work. Now, birthright is like shooting in the dark, right? It's an entire generation. You will have the whole spectrum there. But what birthright does, and I'm going to take why I like birthright. Birthright is not. I mean, I'm not a chassid of the idea of giving things for free. I think it's somehow problematic. But what I like about birthright is that it's a program that went to scale. You know, when you ask what things don't work in the Jewish community, is that we have a lot of good ideas, but many of them don't go to scale. Many of them remain a niche idea. And birthright, the geniality of birthright is to create a whole generation of people that went through the same experience. And that's a platform. That's all it is. It's a platform of a common experience. Now it's going to be up to us to see how we leverage that platform. The issue of birthright follow-up in the States is a very, very critical issue. Like, people are struggling how to deal with it. Because actually, the good thing about birthright and the reason why it works is because it has no strings attached. If people know that when you come back, you're going to be hit from all sides, they're going to stop going. So the chokhmah here is how to do a follow-up that is not, that doesn't seem, you know, coercive or doesn't seem too heavy. And examples like Moshe House, for example, are great examples. Because it's not coercive, it's just folks living together and doing stuff at their own rhythm and the type of things they do. But to create that form is important.
Can I just follow up with a question?
Yes.
One thing is birthright, but you've got the youth movements and you've got the Machon Shnab programs for the Madruchim who become Muslim and work back. I myself went on this program. My son at the moment is on this program. And is there a study about that? Because that's been going, I mean, I did it 1 or 2 years ago, but that's been going since the 60s.
Yeah.
And the involvement of people when they come back, because you have the, they come back, they work in the movement, and these are people who are really involved and connected, and then all of a sudden, where do they go?
Right.
I mean, birthright is one thing, but these kids who go for a year on these various programs are already committed.
Right. Again, you're absolutely right, and it's not either or. I'm also a graduate from the Machon decades ago, but it's definitely not either or. I mean, they serve different purposes. Birthright is designed as a catch-all thing, basically directed to the unaffiliated. Birthright does not create Jewish leadership. Machon creates Jewish leadership. Masa creates Jewish leadership. It's different. But the goal is different. They're not opposed, they're just different. So it's not, again, remember, no either or. You know, it's great to do something that is broad-based, where you're going to get 250,000 Jewish kids to Israel for 10 days, and at least you're going to make sure that every kid in a generation went to Israel. But that doesn't solve your leadership problem in the Jewish community. That doesn't create very engaged people that with a deep knowledge of the Jewish community. That is being done by other programs, either in Israel or local. But there's no silver bullet. Birthright is not silver bullet, and Machon is not silver bullet. Like they serve different goals. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to speak a bit about I wanted you to comment a bit about the Pew report. And,
yeah, my favorite topic.
That's really sent shockwaves through Jewish organizations. And in light of your presentation today, I just wonder how much of engagement is about reaching out to new individuals, a younger cohort, and how much of it is ensuring that our own existence and mission is still relevant to a changing world.
Right. So the Pew report, for those of you that, if you've been in the States, if you were in the States and you didn't hear about the Pew report, I would think that you've been living in a bottle of yogurt for the last, but here you are allowed not to heard about it. And I envy you for not having it's been, the Pew report was an in-depth sort of study of Jewish life in the States, and it has the entire Jewish community speaking about it, and it's very interesting because it elicited a range of emotions and responses that are very diverse. You know, from those that say the sky is falling in our heads, 70% intermarriage, 60% intermarriage, oh my God, give up. And there's the other ones that said, no, it's great. What the study shows is great. So first of all, and if you want to cry give out, and if you want to say it's great, you have enough elements in the study to do both things. And first of all, one of the things that the study shows is that there's more Jews than we thought there were. 6.8 million instead of 5.8 million. It says that there's more intermarriage than we thought, but the point is, I'm not surprised by the study. I mean, one of the big things that has all the Jewish organizations in the States talking about is that 30% of Jews define themselves of Jews without religion. Now, it doesn't surprise me. I grew up in a community where, the main vector of Jewish identity was not religion. It was the Zionist movement, it was the school, it was culture, it was the Yiddish theater. Now, but what this will do, hopefully, is will awaken the Jewish community in the States to open different avenues for Jewish engagement that are not only synagogue-based, right? And that, again, this is not against the synagogue life, this is not against the traditional thing, but if you open more gateways, you're not going to lose all those people that say, I want to be Jewish, but I want to be Jewish in a different way. It's interesting, these people still define themselves as Jewish. They don't say I'm not Jewish. I mean, there is another group, I think it's 4%, that says I'm not Jewish. Like I'm of Jewish ancestry, but I'm not Jewish. That's only 4%. So these people want to connect. So what do we do with that? We tell them, this is the only door. If you fit here, come. If you don't. Or we open many doors. So you care about culture, you care about arts, you care about cinema, Like, one of the articles about the Pew report said, synagogues are struggling, festival of Jewish cinemas, you can't find tickets. And it's an exaggeration, but it shows something, right? So what the Pew study shows for me in more conceptual frameworks is that all these divisions that were sort of applied on the Jewish people from the outside, the concept of culture, the concept of religion, of nation, of people, those are basically Christian definitions of the 19th century. I mean, a religion as such It's not a Jewish concept. I mean, the Judaism is a mixture of everything, you know, religious elements and cultural elements and folkloric elements and ethnic elements. So when we try to force people into these boxes, it breaks. It breaks. So that's the main thing. And the second question, to adapt the organization, so to reach out.
Well, really to ensure that our own existence and mission is still relevant, even in a changing world.
Right. So again, in many cases, it's about going to the basics. Like, you have an organization. What was the organization created for? And you have to ask the question: is it relevant? Will I create it today if it wasn't created? Now, to reassure you, in most of the cases, the answer is yes. It is relevant. It is more a question of how do we go about doing what we're doing, rather than whether our own existence is relevant or not. I mean, at the end of the day, all Jewish organizations are expressions of timeless values and of timeless concepts. The value of community, the value of solidarity, the value of education. I mean, those concepts are timeless. What changes really is the way in which we adapt, in which we operate in a changing world. So yes, you have to ask the question, but what you really need to ask is, what challenges and what issues of the context I'm responding to? Right? Start it outside in. In other words, map what's going on out there and then try to respond rather than starting from yourself. So do I have a justification for it? Wait a minute, let's see what's happening outside. If outside, there's 20% of the Jewish population that is below the poverty line, so well, a welfare organization is needed. So the question is how are we going to operate? We're going to still operate the same way we operated 30 years ago. Yes? Yes?
You've said nothing about the second generation. I'm a second generation. My husband is a child survivor. He's the president of the Jccv. I need to look after my mother, my children, my grandchildren. We're the first generation after the war. Melbourne had one of the largest Holocaust survivor communities in the world. We're not coping. We're not coping, and you're not saying anything about these problems at all.
It's a good point. One thing that they are discovering a lot, and again, I don't know enough about Melbourne, but I do know that the issue of, and by the way, you have a specific definition in Melbourne of first generation, second and third. In the States, it's a little different. But the situation, but what I call the second generation, it's sort of equatable to the baby boomers in the States. Now, the baby boomers in the States, and thank you for bringing it up, because it's a major issue of concern for the community. And by the way, the changes I outlined, they're not only applicable to young people. The biggest segment, the fastest growing segment of Facebook users is female, 65 and up. The fastest growing segment of Facebook users, female, 65 and up. My mother, for example. My mother tried to get me to be on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. She's trying to get me on Facebook. No, because the other thing that the Jewish community is a major change in the Jewish community is that, unfortunately, we're living longer. we're living very long and active lives. The average age of entering into a retirement home just raised to 86. We have 86 is the average home. Average age, to enter into home.
They say here in Melbourne 93.
93, well, exactly. So we're living, and by the way, there's something in the chicken soup, because we're living 7 years more than the non-Jewish community, as an average. So the point is this: the change, and I gotta extend your comment. Engaging the baby boomer is important because they're still active. Some of them are very well-to-do, and they can be an extraordinary force in the community in terms of donations, but in terms of volunteering, young retirees can bring a lot of know-how and value to the Jewish community. And the second thing is, we need to think what happens to a family when, for the first time in human history, 5 generations are living simultaneously. It's what I call the Prince Charles syndrome. Like, he's 65, he's still a prince. The queen is what, 86, 87? Yeah, and she's not going anywhere. Charles is going to be, it's going to drop. Charles is going to be king at 80. Think about it. But that's more and more. So what happens to the family unit in the Jewish community? How do we rethink family engagement? By the way, how do we think Jewish leadership? Jewish leadership, you would start in Machon or in something like that. You would walk yourself through the ladder, until you become president of a major organization. That's it. Now you have 50 years of a potential Jewish leadership. How are we going to keep people interested for 50 years? So those are things that luckily we have to deal with, but there are still issues that we have to think about. Yes?
I was fascinated with your discussion about the structure of the organisations, and because being in middle life and the president of WEXO, that's the only structure I know is the pyramid structure.
Right.
Can you talk about that in practical terms, the change, how it works, and how it actually comes about?
Yeah, well, that's we would need a whole year-long seminar to do that. But I would say,
I can't even visualise it.
In principle, there are things that I'll tell you a few things that I did. That sort of make it. The first thing and the most important thing, it starts with free flow of information. That's the most important thing. There's not. The idea of management in the industrial age was me, the boss. I know things that you don't know. Well, that's bad. Systematically record and use minority reports.
Say that again.
Systematically report and use minority reports. And use minority reports. Let me give you an example. And you can understand that. Motorola, the phone company, bet the entire company on the satellite phone. The idea that some genius on the planning department of Motorola says, well, back in the 90s, they said, who wants to use a cell phone inside a building? The cell phone is good when you're out in the outback and you have to call somebody to bring you the groceries. So they bet everything on creating the satellite phone, which was basically big as a brick, and you carried, and it didn't. And it failed. It failed because people wanted to have their mobile phone inside the buildings and to have it little, and and GSM destroyed them. Now, thankfully for Motorola, they have a system to record minority opinions and to give them leeway to do things. So a few kids there, disgruntled employees, were designing the Razor. That little phone? That saved the company, basically, the Razor. In Israel, by the way. So the point is, in your organization, what are the crazy voices there that are sort of against what you're doing, the mainstream? Give them a space. Give them breathing room. Let them do stuff. Let's see what it comes up. Maybe they come up with the next Razor in terms of something that is going to become a thing. It's when the diversion maneuver becomes the main thrust of the army. But the most important thing, again, for that to happen, you have to create mechanisms for open communication, mechanisms from learning from one another. That's how I try to organize my own staff meetings. Like when I write an op-ed, for example, I put it to my staff and they say, okay, what do you guys think about it? So there's many more like that. But by the way, there's a great book. If If you want to read it, it's called Leadership and the New Science by Margaret Whitley. And she talks about how to apply complexity theory and system theory to leadership. So, yes. Yes, yes.
I'm just very struck by your comment about your organisation being a tool for donors to achieve their goals. But we're a small organisation and we do try and look to do that. But one of the problems we're striking is that the donors start wanting things from your organisation that are outside of your...
Oh, yeah.
So how do you balance that politely and still keep open the channels so that you can achieve...
That's a major problem. And many organizations become totally donor-driven, and they lose sight of what you do. So the problem poses when you feel that you have to own the donor. Well, you don't. Even if you want, or even if you feel like, you don't. So there are issues in which you're going to be able to tell them, I can do this for you. I can do this for you as a stretch. And there are things, and there are moments in which you're going to say, I'm going to be your agent to connect you with the right person to do this, or with the right organization to do this. It's not me. And that goes a long way, because the donor starts seeing you as a trusted source of information, even if in that particular situation he's not going to give you his donation. You're going to, in the relationship terms, you're going to win a lot. It doesn't always work. It's not always easy. It's not always easy. And some donors are going to get pissed. Why you don't want to do this for me? But it's all in the relationship. I always said in the federation that the campaigners, the fundraisers, needed to be more kind of general philanthropic advisors than campaigners for the federation. Because what I wanted was that the donor comes to me. Even when he wants to give money to the museum, it doesn't matter. I can tell him this is the best way to give money to the museum. Or I can make the connection. You know what? I'll call the museum. I'll tell them, and it's extreme, right? It's totally secular. But I wanted the relationship. And within the relationship, you can then work with the donor and make him understand why his vision is great. And you can do it or he can do it somewhere else. But what you are trying to do is also important. And it also becomes your vision. So the key is the relationship. So that helps you a lot. So if you're not fundraisers, you're relationship managers. That's very important. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I don't think this is working.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
But we hear you. It's fine.
We can hear you.
Fantastic. It's hard to structure what I want to say, but my concern is that we have, what I saw growing up is that in, let's say, Hebrew school, people who had heard information or had basically had a Hebrew school upbringing were teaching the next generation. And so the information that was cool to, and I was very cool when I was teaching, however cool it was, and you say, please God, this person actually has a connection with the source, has a closer connection with the source. But as we have young leaders teaching the next generation, we have maybe a watering down of the really true message, but the inverse is also true, that the people who are closest to the source are not speaking in a cool language. So I think there needs to be some mechanism by which the people who have a very close, like mind-blowing message about Judaism, which I sometimes carry to non-Jewish people who are just absolutely blown away by my message about what Jewish civilization is, irregardless of religion.
We need the question.
But seriously, I think there needs to be leadership training, both for people who have a very clear and strong message, but also for, because I see in the Machon, not just in the Machon, but I see that in the movements, in our youth movements, we have children teaching children some watered down
Okay,
message and not, you know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. So, okay.
Gary,
So there's two questions here. And one question is the I hesitate to call it the quality, but the relevance of the message.
Mm.
And the second question is the relevance of the communicational codes through which that message is translated. And I think we have issues in both. I think what you just said about Judaism being a civilization and beyond religion, and to articulate that easily, to articulate that message in a way that people can understand is very hard. And we're not doing it right at a community level. That's the first thing. And one of the things I was talking the other day, I remember I don't know what day we are today, but Monday, thank you. I think it was Thursday, we were talking about Jewish movements and Jewish ideologies using really a language of 200 years ago. You know, from Reform to Orthodoxy to Zen, it's all languages that were created in Germany in the 19th century, and we still use them. We have tweaked it a little, but we still use the same language. So to find a relevant language to talk about Judaism is very important. And then to do it using codes that people understand. Now, it's tricky, because on the one hand, you don't want to totally surrender to the Twitter culture. You don't want to really do a reductionism of Judaism to a sort of lack of patience, 140 characters mindset. You want to be countercultural or something. In some things you want to be countercultural. You want to see, no, Judaism is not a TED Talk. Everybody, for the JFN conference, we should do TED Talks. Well, TED Talks are not always great. I mean, it's great when you want to give a flavor of something, but when you want to discuss an issue, you need more than 15 minutes. And we have to say that. So I think that the balance is, somebody told me something, once, that is that being Jewish is swimming with the stream and against the stream at the same time. In other words, how do we get cultural codes that allow us to communicate with young people that live in this type of world that I described, and yet at the same time, how we keep, how we are countercultural in the things that we have to be countercultural, and in the things that we have to keep a different way of manifesting Judaism. Yes?
So coming from the Federation world in the US and struggling with a lot of what you've talked about today, if you believe in the collective, and I do, but you also believe, you see what's happening, how do we communicate the power of the collective in a meaningful way to bring people to it?
So the power, so first of all, you can have to create new ways of expressing the collective. I mean, the giving circle that I described before is a collective. It's just a different collective. So this is a little bit what you have to do. You have to try to re-signify the collective and how the collective gets expressed in the 21st century, which is different than how it got expressed in the 19th century or in the 20th century. At the end of the day, the Federation is not eternal. The Federation was created 100 years ago. Before, Jews had other ways of expressing their collectiveness. So I think that that's the key. The key is not to give up on the idea of the collective, but to find what are the different ways of doing that. Somebody said the Jews taught the world the art of being a people. So collective is part of who we are. But the question is, what the form of that collective? That's something that we have. And by the way, there's no answer. You have to tinker with it. Is that work? Is that, Yes?
My question is actually similar, because I've been thinking all along the way that part of what you've said, in my mind, is contradictory. In the sense that everything becomes decentralized and individualized, and yet what we're trying to do is find a way to cooperate and therefore centralize.
Correct.
Especially in a Jewish community where there are so many competing organizations that are after the same donor dollar, and you've got donor fatigue. So on the one hand, you want
we want organisations to look and be flexible and to try and find ways to collectively come together in order to reduce this demand on the same donor that we're all going after. But on the other hand, we've got all these individual needs and individual things that we think might appeal to them, so we want to approach individually.
Right.
And it's really a contradiction in terms.
Right. It is. One of the things of this world is that it's very contradictory. it's not. You want it. The story, the Jewish story of the two contenders that go to a rabbi, and one pleads his case, and the rabbi says, "You're right." The other one pleads his case and says, "You're right." But the wife comes from the other room and says, "How can they both be right? It can't be that. You're right too." But that's on a global scale today. Yes, we sometimes want contradictory things, but they're not so contradictory when you look at it. First of all, one thing that you say that is an assumption that I want to challenge, which is that we are after the same pool of money. Well, we're not. I mean, the pool can expand. I mean, and I know that the States is not like, Australia is different and the critical mass there is much bigger, but they also look at Jewish giving there as a zero-sum game, and it's not.
We'll turn that off, please.
Yeah, we have to. Somebody has that on,
crazy.
right?
Please. What is that? I can really hear it on here.
Andre, sorry, we've got time for 2 more questions.
So then
before Andre wraps up.
So then we answer it. I lost track. Yes. So it's not a zero-sum game. We've run a program with the Jewish Funders Network, it's called the Matching Grant Program. I was talking about it on Thursday, which is designed to expand the donor base for the Jewish community, and it works. It works. In other words, what it works is when you're open to people giving you money in different ways and to people engaging with you in different ways. And what it works is the connections work. In other words, when a donor can transmit somebody else the passion and the joy for giving, it actually inspires him to do more and to give more. Now, the fact that we're all competing in some way, and we are, it's also not fair to say that we're not. In some way we are competing, doesn't prevent us from being open in terms of information flow and in terms of sort of doing things together when we can. There's things that we agree to disagree, and there's things that we agree to compete on this specific issue, but in others we're going to cooperate. If we do that, donors are going to be much more receptive. At the Federation, by the way, we used to do joint appeals, which was unthinkable. We would go together with another organization, we would go together. We said, we're going to, yes, you're tired of 10 people snoring you at the same time? Okay, we're going to go together. And we're going to tell you why you have to support both of us. It's an extreme, but what I'm trying to say is, again, donors reward cooperation. They don't reward competition. They get turned off by competition. They don't want to fund competition. Okay, 2 more questions? Yes.
Hello. So I was going to ask a question about impact investment and whether that is, if major philanthropists are choosing to spend their dollars on impact investment as opposed to philanthropy. But I've got another question about donors not giving to causes but giving to people. The strength of our Jewish community is the strength of the people working at our Jewish communal organisations. And in America, you have all these fantastic master's degrees and conferences every second week for Jewish communal workers. We don't have that in Australia. We've got these four networking sessions a year, which are great. But how are we going to build the next generation of fantastic and skilled Jewish communal workers in Australia on our resources?
Good. So 2 things. The impact investing, I'm going to mention it, even though you sort of led that question, but I think it's important. Impact investing is people investing the corpus of their foundations into investments that are aligned with their mission, and if necessary, sacrificing return to get a social impact. It's been very, very strong today in the States, but it's very important because what it means is a blurring of the boundaries between philanthropy and business. So in the past, we had three very distinct sectors. We had the state, private, and philanthropic. Today, they're all mixed up. Like and actually, Israel is the best example of that. In Israel, all the philanthropic investments, not all, but many philanthropic investments include government participation, classic philanthropy, that is grants, and impact investing. People that say, I'm going to invest in this, expecting a return, I'm sacrificing return. Now, the question is always, we have a tendency in the Jewish community to see every new fad that comes as the Mashiach. Now in the States, the problem is that everything has to be impact investing. I go ask for a grant, they say, oh no, get somebody to do impact investing. Well, certain things depend on classic philanthropy because they're market failures. And that's why they are philanthropic, because the market cannot respond to them. So for these cases, impact investing is not good. Now, for other things, it could be good. You want to do with youth advancement in Beersheba, and you want to create this is a true case, a restaurant served by youth at risk, and making money. Well, that could be impact investing. It's not going to make as much money as a normal restaurant, but it's going to make some money, and it's going to be, instead of having a 5% return, you're going to do a 2% return. But so that's about impact investing. The second thing about
do you think our organisation, like United Israel Appeal, should go set up restaurants in Beersheba? Should our non-profit start to create social enterprises?
What they do, I can't be prescriptive of what they should do, what they shouldn't do, but what they should do is explore different ways of engaging philanthropically. And study what's going on. It may not be appropriate, and it may be. I don't know, alternative energy, academic research. There are many fields in which you could do impact investing in Israel. And there are a lot of people that are going to be turned on by it. As long as you don't consider it a blanket thing that is going to solve all the Jewish problems, because it's not. So we still need to write a check for, make a donation at some point for other things. The second thing about leadership, you touched one of the critical issues, and you say that in the States well, we have masters and we have this and we have this. First of all, they're all worthless. And secondly, the situation in the and I say this publicly, so you can, they're not worthless. What they are is they're not producing the pipeline of leaders for the future. 400 CEOs of Jewish organizations in the States are retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. There is no clue where the succession will come from. It is a critical issue for the Jewish community worldwide, and the reason, and one of the problems, there are many problems why that happens, and the training is just one of them. I would even say the training is not the biggest problem, because the training is good. The problem is that you don't link the training with the opportunity. And the reason why that happens, one of the reasons why that happens, is because the value proposition of Jewish organizations for prospective leaders is low. Let me give you an example. UJA Federation of New York now is looking for a CEO. This is the biggest Jewish federation in the world, the biggest local charity in the world. They don't have candidates. And the thing going around in the community is you have to be crazy to want that job. So it's a joke, but it's not. It means that young, talented professionals are not seeing a communal career as the thing. And the reason is that if organizations are perceived as organizations of the 19th and 20th century, micromanaged, involved in intrigues and politicking and inner fights and turf and whatever, who's going to want to work there? Right? So if we want to attract good leadership, we need to start thinking of making Jewish organizations attractive and valuable places to work, and give those leaders the opportunity of changing things. If you when they hired me from Montreal, I said, can I be an agent of change? Because if not, I'm not interested. Now, to their credit, they say yes. But in many communities, they say, well, not really. I mean, we want you to raise more money. Okay, but can I be an agent? Because, so young leaders need to be given the permission to tinker, to try, to experience, and to create new things. Because it can be very rewarding and it can be cool. I mean, I love working for the Jewish community. I think we all do. And as I can make a last comment before we close, is that all these situations that I describe is very unsettling, right? On the one hand, but on the other hand, it's awesome. Like it puts us in a position of being able to create the Jewish community of the future. And that's a unique privilege. I mean, we're at the crossroads of Jewish history, and the way the community is going to look in the next 100 years depends a little bit on us, and that's a great place to be in. So let's not squander that. Let's do something nice with it. Okay? Thank you.
I usually take good notes, which I send out afterwards. I'm going to have to rewind this tape and transcribe every single word because they are such nuggets and such gems.
Not all of them.
And I thank you very much indeed. I'm going to ask our President, Nina Bassett, to give the vote of thanks and to close.
It is indeed my very great pleasure to move the vote of thanks, but before doing so, I would like to thank Debbie Dardon and the Australian Jewish Funders. There's no way we could have heard this wonderful, wonderful function without it. And if I'm not mistaken, that was a synergy between impact investing and classical philanthropy. You spoke about so many interesting things, but I picked up on words rather than concepts because I don't think conceptually at 10:30 in the morning, let alone at 9 o'clock. But you used the word, I think you may not have used the word synergy, but that's the word that sprang to mind.
Yeah.
And you talked about connection, and you talked about networking, and why I put that together with the word synergy. Our JCCV, and particularly Joe Silver, has just created a group called Connect. And this Connect group is to deal with young leadership, post-university leadership, post-Machon, 20 to 28, 20 to 30, develop that young leadership, but let them develop it, and at the same time create a networking group. I see some people who were at that function. I wasn't allowed to because I was aged about. It's fine, I know my place in the community, and that leads me to another thing that you've said. You've spoken about broad leadership rather than top-down. I'm enormously seduced by the concept of broad leadership because it enables you to be a lazy leader. It enables you to turn to your executive, and I have some members of my executive, and to your staff, and to say, you know what, you're doing this, and you're doing that, and you're doing that. And it's a wonderful connectivity because it enables you as a communal leader to understand that you have some things to offer, but everyone else at your table has a lot of things to offer. And if you don't draw on that, you're missing out. So I really liked what you said because it plays into this laziness. I think we've really had a workshop or a symposium, or whatever you call this, which has been so fruitful, so full of engaging and broad-based strategy. And I really think this is going to perhaps, well, I hope, no, I think this is going to energize our community as not many things have, and we're very, very grateful for doing this for us.
Thank you.
Oh, can I just argue with you on one issue? Sorry. Reductionism in Judaism is a historical given. What about Hillel?
Oh, good. That's less than 140 characters.
Well, much less than 140 characters.
Wow,
So,
I didn't think of that.
So I thought, how can you say? We are expert at
But then he said, go and learn.
Go and learn. But that was part of the 140 characters.
Sure.
So thank you very, very much.
But it just needs to go on.
Thank you.
Small